welcome back to Dispatches from the Dugout. This is episode 2, and in this episode we are going to be looking at the uses and development of the Vickers machine gun in the 1920s, among other things. We're going to have a what if section, and that is going to be what if the MGC, the Machine Gun Corps, was not disbanded in 1922. We're going to have a small arms section, and that is the development of the Thompson, the BAR, and the MP28. From the collection, we've got an Irish helmet, the commercial Vickers gun, and the 1924 manual. And Rich, what has changed in the Dugout today?
So one of the things that we want to do is obviously show the development of the Vickers over time, and we've changed our gun. So and our uniform, and the gun here is a First World War production gun. It's that late war production. So we'll talk about that at some point. I'm sure I think one of our questions is about how production development changes, and it's simplified. So it's simpler than the 1914 gun. It's also got this muzzle attachment here, so the Mark II armoured cone, so developed late in the war to start bullets splaying off it rather than piercing it. Rubber hose, little things like that are what changes through the Vickers life. This particular example is a 1917 made gun that shows the longevity of the guns itself and takes us a little bit outside of the 1920s. But the gun was given to Egypt in 1940. So First World War British production, given to Egypt in the 1940s. 6-Day War, 1967, in the Israelis capture it from the Egyptians, take it into their service, change it to 7.92 millimeter, and stays in Israeli service then, and it eventually comes on the collector's market in 1986.
That's this gun?
That's that gun, that tripod, matched to it, 'cause it doesn't fit any other tripod for another couple of reasons. But it changes, but that's the kind of longevity that we're having with the Vickers. Minor changes, but still in service for many, many years. The uniform, as pretty much as it would be at the end of the First World War. 1908 pattern webbing, the leather equipment that we saw on the previous uniforms gone. That's really just wartime expedient stuff. Regular soldiers back into 08 pattern equipment. Respirators prevalent as well. Steel helmet ubiquitous. The uniform and the base stuff is the same, but the 1920s is the British Army that won the First World War in 1918.
So does development slow down at that point?
Yeah, everybody's run out of money.
Yeah,
we'll talk a little bit about how some of that's keyed up, but everybody's run out of money really because there's just been a big war. And
so you're continuing with this kind of equipment.
Yeah, but there's some modernisation and some changes that we'll touch on.
What if the MGC was not disbanded in 1922? Rich, can you explain why it was disbanded in 1922 to start off with?
Yeah, it's one of those interesting units, isn't it? That it's war raised, and the glider pilot regiment was a war raised unit. The intent was to disband it after the war. Reconnaissance Corps, the Second World War ones, people are perhaps a little bit more familiar with. The Machine Gun Corps. Formed in 1915 from bringing all the sort of machine gunners in from, not necessarily physically, but all of those in from the infantry battalions, cavalry regiments. And at that time, we have a big army. So it expands and contracts, and you cannot. Well, some will argue you can, but you can't really sustain lots of different units. So there's some sort of debate, and one of the projects that we're working on is the Machine Gun Corps History Project, as you know, and that's been running for many, many years now. And one of my bits of that is actually the legacy piece, what happens after or after the Machine Gun Corps. And why was it disbanded? Really, it was about cost, but necessity. Mm-hmm. You don't need machine guns doing big barrages to do colonial policing. Indirect fire isn't great for protest management in India. It's one of those things that you don't necessarily need that capability.
Can I just ask, what sort of strength is the Machine Gun Corps by 1920, for instance, or at the end of the First World War?
It's a great question. I'm going to say I don't know.
Okay.
I can't think what that is at that point. So every battalion, we're down to 4 or 5 battalions.
Okay.
And a battalion's going to be around 600 to 700 men each. Yeah. One of those is in Ireland. So the last unit of the MGC in 22 is actually coming back from Ireland to be disbanded, where it's been armoured cars and you know, the Irish treaties and everything are happening. So it's being disbanded because you don't need machine guns.
So it's sizable. The Corps is a sizable corps at the end of the First World War, at the early 1920s, isn't it?
And the other piece is the impact that machine gunnery has is it's returned to the infantry. So you don't lose the capability.
No.
You just get giving it back to the infantry regiments. Yeah. And the other thing is that the offensive and the, I don't know whether you call it the hardcore piece, but the aggressive piece of machine gunnery has largely been, it's an argument whether you want machine guns doing that job or tanks.
Yeah.
And the tank corps does survive. Yeah. This is one where, you know, should the tank corps survive? Should the machine gun corps? Should every infantry unit get tanks? Yeah. You know, how do you do that stuff? And clearly the infantry could have them back because they had them in the first place. You just need to now do them different, give them different tactics. So it disbands. And as I said, you know, 22 is when that happens. My personal view is that if it hadn't disbanded, you'd have lots of separate, disparate companies and maybe even independent platoons.
Right.
Because you need them to go with infantry battalions. And the only parallel that I can think of that is that you've got the Army Ordnance Corps and the Royal Army Ordnance Corps providing individual soldiers to battalions, you know, as artificers and you know, those skilled trades. You've then got Army Catering Corps individuals, Royal Army Medical Corps individuals, or very small amounts. But you'd be saying for every infantry battalion, we're going to give them a company of machine gunners to live with. So they'd be on their pay and rations. And that just seemed administratively quite difficult.
So it's a logical progression, really, to disband the corps and disperse the guns amongst the infantry regiments. Then it's a logical thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, but what do you think is lost by that?
Yeah.
The skills learned. I mean, you're going to have the men going back into the infantry, but not all of them. A lot of them are citizen soldiers and going back into civilian life. So there's a lot of...
Yeah, so that corps of men that's been trained to operate these weapons, when the corps disbanded and the guns go back to the infantry, what happens to those men? Because you must have a deficit of men that you don't particularly need, you need anymore. So therefore, do they then get integrated back into those infantry battalions and they're back on the guns? Or is...
So this one is really... I think some of the elements of long-term planning in that they had made sure that people wanted to stay in the army were transferred out over time.
Right.
In the months or year before you knew. Yeah. However, in the Army Order or Army Council Instruction, and this is a proper rabbit hole to follow at another time, but they all get transferred to the 1st Battalion, the Hampshire Regiment, or the depot. It's the depot of the Hampshire Regiment to deal with.
Right.
It's like, well, I don't know what they did with them.
Yeah.
So they they got rid of them there to deal with them, so they could shut down the MGC depot. And we've got some of the last pay accounts from the MGC battalion depot actually at Shorncliffe. So it's some interesting bits of artefacts that we've got access to. Many of them stayed on, but into different units.
Right.
And it's going to be, we do lose those skills. We do lose those things. But actually for that period in the 20s and the 30s, up to 36, we'll talk more about the formation of the machine gun battalions in that episode. But we have the most machine guns in the army. Right, because what don't you get rid of? You don't get rid of your machine guns.
No, exactly. Yeah.
So if the machine gun corps hadn't been disbanded, we might have had less machine guns across the army.
Okay.
Because they'd have like been on stock reserve and the infantry battalions wouldn't have had them.
Yeah.
So what you had was an infantry battalion's 4 companies. You had 3 rifle companies and a machine gun company in every battalion.
Right.
So 16 guns changes to 12.
Yeah.
different times, 16 guns per battalion.
Yeah.
That's what you were having, per brigade in the First World War.
Yeah.
So it's treble the amount, basically, or quadruple in some cases, the amount of machine guns. So if we hadn't disbanded, we might have had less machine guns.
Well, there we go.
Leading into the Second World War, which would have been interesting.
Yeah, where you needed more machine guns.
Machine guns, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you like what you're watching and you want to see more, leave a comment on YouTube and we'll give one person from those comments each episode a month's free subscription to Patreon, where you can access all of our archive and the firing videos that go alongside this series. We'll also, because we don't want to leave you out, any patrons that leave comments on the Patreon site for that video, we are going to select one from across the series and send you a copy, wherever you are, one copy of the Pride of the Emigres book that we retail. Obviously, terms and conditions will apply, so please have a read of those before you enter any of those competitions.
Here we have post-First World War small arms development. It appears that submachine guns and light machine guns are the flavour of the month. Rich, what have we got here on the table?
So we've got a Thompson. These American-made Thompson. So this is actually a 1921 version. So it's the first sort of commercialised version that we've got. But there, I sort of came out of the concept of trench clearances and things like that. Remarkably, the British didn't. We didn't look at that. We went, if you want to clear a trench, use a grenade and a bayonet, or a Lewis, which we'll talk about in a moment. But Thompson there, M1921 with the drum mags and the stick mags there in a lovely trumpet case. Not exactly a violin case. You need to do that if you're just carrying one. Trumpet is where you carry all your mags as well. And then the German development, this is an MP28. So this is actually a development of the MP18, which is possibly, gosh, it's heavy. You'd normally see like the snail drum mag coming out of the side here. We've got some lovely stuff, but we don't have an MP18 at the moment.
Yeah.
All we say at the moment, and this is just that development of that. So the Germans were doing exactly the same thing. They did field those in the First World War as well. So there is evidence of those in use with their Sturmtrupp and the stormtroops. Okay. And then largely SMG development comes into policing. I think everybody's aware of the Thompson being developed and then being used by criminals and the police to match that firepower. And that probably is what the commercialisation is, because as we've said, there's no money around to do lots of things. Yeah. So,
and I'm guessing then the US military aren't particularly wanting the Thompson, so much as the police.
I'm not sure actually how much is developed into the US military. Right. So I'd have to look into that one. And I'm sure there's better informed people on the Thompson and the submachine guns than we are. But it is the 21 and then the 28, and the 28 is more ubiquitous, and we've fired that before, and we'll fire this separately. But the 21 develops quite nicely along the way. Then perhaps another sort of criminal related gun, but the BAR is used on both sides of law enforcement in the US as well. But it gets fielded in the First World War at the end of.
What's this designated? Is this the M1919?
18.
1918,
and this is an A2 variant.
Right.
So this one has it's not semi-automatic. It's fast and slow rates of automatic fire.
Okay.
So it's safe, slow, fast.
Yeah.
And it'd be good to demonstrate that at some point. But so this is the A2 variant, and this goes. This then serves all the way through the Second World War into Korea, and then even into the start of Vietnam as well. Yeah. So it's a 20-round magazine that would be fitted on here, detachable magazine. It is horribly off balance, so particularly with the bipod fitted. Yeah. So this and the Lewis, when they're first brought into service, they're designated automatic rifles. They're not light machine guns. Light machine gun is a 20s and 30s concept.
Oh, okay.
But they are They're automatic rifles. So they're designed to be used by one person. I think the British quite quickly realised with the Lewis that's not the case, partly because we put it in as that machine gun role.
So this isn't a crew operated weapon.
You'd have an ammunition bearer, and assistants is how they were referred to, but you didn't need them to actually make it function. So, and that's I suppose that's the concept of automatic rifles: is you need somebody else to carry ammunition, but you can use it on your own.
And on that point, then, what calibre is it? 30-06?
30-06, yes, 30-06. No pistol grip or anything. It's very rifle-like in its approach. But I'm going to try and find the point of balance. I've got it too far back there. But yeah, it's balanced at that point because of that bipod. It feels very front heavy, and it's also one of the most horrible bipods to use. We'll see it on the Vickers Berthier that's being developed there. All of these bipods at this point are floppy. Everything falls over. Nothing clicks into place. And yeah, as I said, the Vickers Berthier there as well. So this is a 1928-29 model of the Vickers Berthier. And you can see some influences from other firearms in the ribbing of the barrel jack.
It's got a similar foregrip to the BAR.
Yeah, it's designed to be held, either fired from the shoulder, or fired like that. It's that walk-in trench fire, which the Lewis you can do because you just hold it around that barrel shroud. For the Eagle Eye, there's a dial sight case holding that up, because what happens when it doesn't is it has no lock. It just flops around the place. So this is a 20 round magazine. That's fed by a 30 round magazine. The Lewis is a 47 round magazine. So the idea is that actually the more mobile you want to get, you actually need to carry less ammunition on the weapon.
Right.
So because 47 rounds of 303 is heavy. 20 rounds of 30-06 actually feels quite heavy, and 30 rounds of 303 on the Vickers Berthier there as well.
So with the Vickers Berthier, the magazine is obviously very Bren-like. We're very familiar with that shape.
Yeah.
But I can't. How does that? There's no slide. There's no magazine slide to.
No. So
how does that go on?
It's quite. You just lean it across. Yeah, swap round. Basically, you pull that bit back. That flops up.
Okay.
Put it back again. You push that forward, and then it clips in there like that. So simple, isn't it?
It's very nicely engineered.
It's not as nice as the Bren, is it? Let's be honest.
So yeah, and then that becomes your magazine release catch.
Okay.
So
well, it's a nice bit of design.
But it sort of all folds down quite flat, and it's interesting when you look at that and you think why. You do think why? Yeah, and it's just to stop that dust ingress, and well, why not just put a slide on it? But it stops it keeps everything quite low profile, and my view on that,
and it's not going to catch on anything, is it?
No, and my view on that is because when you're thinking about how this stuff is being used, like machine guns, how they're being moved around the place, it's pack saddlery again. You want that to slip in and out of a rifle, bucket, or, a VB bucket quite nicely. Or if you're thinking trench warfare, you want a breech cover to go round it quite nicely as well. So it's an interesting one.
It's all very sort of neatly packed away, isn't it, when it's all closed up like that?
And this is similar to the Vickers concept of commercialisation of their guns. Who can we sell these to? Where can we get them around the world? I think this particular example is a Portuguese example. Right. Sadly, the Vickers Berthier is one of those that we can't be firing. We only have deactivated examples at the moment. But it is very Bren-like in its approach, and when we've done our events,
or ZB,
and people look at this and think Japanese because of this influence, but that Berthier piece is the French influence. That the Japanese stuff had the Hotchkiss influence, which is the way you dissipate heat on these differs because just a bit of a heavier barrel than a rifle. Some ribbing here to create more surface area.
Ribbing here.
Same on, ribbing now, absolutely. Just pull that one up, you'll just be able to see that you've just got some air moving around the barrel in that case. And then the fins, obviously, on the Lewis. Yeah. So, and just to be said that the Lewis is not a 1920s development gun. We've got it here from the point of it's influenced the light machine gun.
This is
elements.
what's replacing it.
Yeah, the Lewis actually has is on the range at the same time as the trials with the Vickers in 1912 with the British. Right. So and we weren't that. Come back in a few years, and that's what they did. Right. So a range then of the light machine guns and subs.
So for our Patreon members, we're heading up to the range now, and for our YouTube members, we're heading back to the dugout. We have our commercial guns, the 1924 manual, and I'll be chatting about the Irish helmet, which is behind me at the moment. But first of all, Rich, what have we got in front of us here?
Well, I mentioned about how we had loads of Vickers left over at the end of the First World War. You know, we'd made literally tens of thousands of them. And one of the things that happens is we looked to rearm. We kept the Vickers, but we had, let's say, lots left over. And actually, we gave some of them back to Vickers. So we, being the War Office, okay? So we, the British Army, gave them back to Vickers, the manufacturer.
Did they sell them back or give them back?
It's really unclear.
Okay, right.
So there's some unpaid bills at the end of the war, and then so I think it probably went, well, we don't want them. We don't want to pay the bill, so you have them back. And then they started selling around the world, because what's happened is there's been this really big war, and although it was a world war, not every country was involved. So what we now need to do is make sure that all of the developments that have happened in the countries that were involved are happening in the countries that weren't, because they might feel, well, you'd be defensive. There's been this war. All these countries are upscaled their militaries. We need to do the same. And this particular example is a good one like that. And this goes through the 20s and 30s. So we think it's an ex-British service gun. Right. Certainly made in the same standards and style. It's called a Class C. So although the British called them Mark 1, Mark 2, Mark 3, etc., the commercial had classes. Right. And this is the Class C. There is a Class A and B, but they look nothing like, but the Class C is the first one. And I know, this one went to Chile, and this went in the 7mm caliber. So for those of you, the audience that understand sort of rifle shooting and loads of different calibers that are out there, we can't cover all of that technical stuff, partly because we don't know it as well. But what Vickers did is they were able to turn around and say, what caliber are your rifles in? Oh, we're in 7mm. We make 7mm locally. Brilliant. We'll make you a gun in 7mm. Because by changing the lock, the barrel, and the feed block, these guns can pretty much go in any rifle caliber ammunition. Right. So it made it really easy to sell. Yeah. It was,
and of course, sorry, those 303 parts that you've taken out, they're not wasted. They'll go into store.
They could go into store. They can be remanufactured potentially. Right. Okay. They can go as spares. There's enough people buying 303 because not only is there lots of guns left over, there's lots of ammunition left over. And so this is in 7mm, which was their local Mauser round as well. We have another example that was originally sold in 6.5mm that went to the Netherlands East Indies. Right. We have several of these, and several of these commercial guns. They're really interesting. They often crop up amongst other batches. So I talked about that coming on the collector's market in 1986. Some of this stuff is just crops up in random places. Right. I think the two commercial guns that we had actually cropped up in Pakistan or India when stuff was bought out of those locations. So they will eventually be sold off by those countries as well. But commercialisation is a huge thing in the 20s and 30s for the arms industry. And there's your whole piece around how they financed, how they created demand and everything as well. Right. And although this is about the Vickers in British service, the series, this is very much an extension of that service, because it shows how the Vickers was being used around the world. And I think one of the pieces you've got, Matt, is also not British service as such.
So we've got this training manual which belonged to Captain Russell of the British Army, but he was stationed in India, and this is his training manual. So he was stationed at Ahmednagur, and this is an incredible book. So we can see that what he's actually done, he wasn't issued with it like this, he's had it bound himself. So he's taken all his training documentation, all his notes, illustrations, maps, charts.
Course syllabus.
Yeah. Everything has been bound by him in his own manual, which is absolutely fascinating. I think there's also detail in here about the first time blank ammunition was issued to the guns. Was in 1925, I think, which would be purely for training. So up until that point, blank ammunition hadn't been used in training. They used live ammunition in training, and it wasn't until 1925 that they
or shout bang.
Or shout bang.
Yeah.
But as you can see, this just goes on page after page. It's just absolutely fascinating. So wonderful.
So that's all going to be like the end of the First World War stuff.
Right.
So that's going to be the peak of training.
Right.
Yeah, everything we've learned in the First World War is going to have been boiled down and encapsulated into the manuals of 1920. And that's going to encapsulate that for sure, yeah.
Right.
So we've had that photographed and on the website for many years now. So it's not just on our Patreon pages, it's hosted on there, but it's accessible to everybody. So go over and take a look. You'll find some gems in there for sure.
Yeah. Incredible amount of documentation in one place, which makes it really...
So Ahmednagur is an interesting place because it parallels the machine gun training that happened in the UK in that we had Netheravon. Netheravon was the machine gun school, and then the machine gun wing of the small arms school. In India, set up Ahmednagur to replicate that over there as well. Okay. So he would have been an instructor at that.
It's not broke, don't fix it. It's worked, so let's move it over there and use the same principles. Right, okay. Fascinating.
And what was it you had, Tom?
So, harking back to previous one linked to Ireland with the machine gun corps, you're saying the last units were stationed in Ireland before they came back. The Irish Army, pretty much off the back of the First World War, seeing how the Vickers machine gun was reliable, proven, adopted it in its infancy.
So when the Irish Army starts,
exactly in 1922, they adopt a lot of British kit. The Vickers, the SMLE, seeing how it worked. It worked in the First World War. So why invent something new when you can just buy something off the shelf direct from Vickers? And they also used the British manuals directly. They didn't reprint them. Some of them were overstamped. The
Irish Free State.
Irish Free State overstamped over the British markings. But other than that, it didn't change. Again, ain't break, don't fix it. But what they also had, which makes, when you go back and look at the footage of the Irish Army in the 20s and 30s, British uniform, British webbing, British equipment, British weapons, and then this, which is the M1927. Looks very familiar as the Stahlhelm, the M1916 German helmet. The interesting thing about this is it was made by Vickers in the post-war period. Made for the Irish. The shell was the liner and strap were made locally in Ireland. Just over 10,000 were made, and they were used from the late 20s up until the late 30s for obvious reasons. They then changed back to so this replaced the British Army First World War Brodie helmet, and then in 1939, I think it was again replaced by the Mark II.
Yeah, it's about that time I think it changes back. 39-40.
The most notable difference is that it's got the lugs for the unit cap badge, essentially.
Yeah, I think it's an Irish Free State.
Oh, it's Irish. Yeah.
So on front.
So makes for some very interesting looking photos from the 20s and 30s.
I mean, that one came to us years and years ago now with the handcarts that we've got.
Yes.
So we've got some Irish handcarts, which are great and just won't fit on the bench, really.
No, but they're brilliant.
But it came to us with those, and it was painted white, which I believe was civil defence.
Or emergency services would have used them as well.
Yeah, and it was horrible inside. And to show the similarities of everything, as you said, it was based on the German design. That is a reproduction German First World War helmet, liners, because you can buy them, whereas you can't search Google for reproduction Irish 1927 helmet. They just happen to be the same. Yeah. No, fascinating. Great. Thank you.
From Delta Juliet, what were the total man hours for making a Vickers, firstly, and how much weight, I think, was knocked off production between 1916 and 1918, and the developments from the gun you saw in the first episode to this one here?
Yeah, so as I said, this is a simplified version. Man hours, I'm not sure off the top of my head. We'll certainly take that away, have a look. And 150 comes to mind, but it's more than that. I'm sure it is. I might be confusing that with the cost. So they're about 115, annoyingly, 115 pounds at the time. And that doesn't change in price, even though they're simplified. Vickers just keep the price the same. And they say, well, we need that for investing in capital equipment. Okay. You need to spend more, but we're making them more quickly, and we're releasing machinists and stuff for other work. So they do that, but it's so they just simplify it, not necessarily how the it is from the man hours perspective. It's I can say about 150. Okay. What was the second bit?
The second bit, the weight changes. So what did they? Yeah.
So we know. So the 1918 guns, which are the smooth barrel casing guns,
are they the drawn? They're spun. They're not the drawn. That doesn't.
So this fluted. This is what we call as the fluted barrel casing. Yeah. Lighter, it's tinnier. You can hear it. Now this is light. Yeah, the Vickers comes in as the light gun because compared to the Maxim it is. By the end of the war, it's 3 kilograms lighter.
Right.
So 7 pounds. It's a huge difference.
Lighter or heavier?
By the end of the war, it is 3 kilograms lighter than the guns being produced at the start of the war. Right. This is going to be a bit of a mishmash because we've still got a fluted barrel casing, but we've got slab sides. They're not as lightened. We've only got a single arch top cover here rather than the 5 arch. So a lot of the milling and lightening isn't happening on these guns. Doesn't need it on commercial, because people want it to look nice. But at the same time, Vickers want to save money, so that doesn't necessarily make it look nice. But the fluted barrel casing is that biggest weight saving. So they're about, start to the finish of the war, 3 kilograms lighter. I'm going to and say, if I can remember rightly, that these were about 1.5 kilo lighter because of the fluted barrel casing rather than the smooth barrel casing. But it's the smooth barrel casing that comes in towards in the 30s in the Second World War as well.
Yeah, which Delta Juliet says, what about the drawn jackets the Aussies did? But that's we're jumping ahead.
Yeah, a little bit, but that's 20s actually. 1929 is when the Australians make their first Vickers machine gun, which we'll talk about in a much wider context at some point. But 1929 the Australians make theirs, and they do a smooth barrel casing, which is drawn from a single piece.
And that's just the development of the technologies of the time that enabled them to do that. Yeah. And then, Matt, did you have a question?
I do have a question, Tom. You're quite correct. So, the gun in itself is the Mark I Vickers.
Yep.
It goes through changes and modifications. It's lighter, so on and so forth. Why doesn't that become a Mark II? Why does it stay at Mark I, even though it's been modified?
Because everything's largely compatible with it still. So what you've got, and actually you can see we've got the flat muzzle cone on the commercial gun, and we've got that. So this is a Mark I muzzle cone. Yeah. That's a Mark II muzzle cone, but that's still on a Mark I gun. Yeah. These barrel casings, this is a Mark I barrel casing. The smooth ones are referred to as the Mark I Star. Don't know why they don't become a Mark II, but they become a Mark I Star, but they're still on a Mark I gun. There is a Mark II gun, but it's an aircraft gun. So there's a Mark I, there's a Mark I Star, which is one of these with louvers cut in it, and we've got one in the collection, which you use for aircraft. The Mark II is the same back end a bit, but it's made for aircraft, smaller barrel casing. Mark III looks like a Second World War Browning or an M1919 Browning. To the point that the front end you can easily confuse that. It's a Mark IV, there's a 4A, there's a 4B. They're both armoured fighting vehicle. So they've got different jobs at that point as well.
I see. Okay.
There's a Mark V, which is another aircraft gun. There's a Mark VI and a Mark VII. Yeah. But they all fall out of service. It's the Mark I that stays longevity, but with these iterations. And then even to the point that we get, so I think that's a Mark I star tangent sight on a Mark I tangent sight slide. So it's not until you really get into the lists of changes, the armourers documents, the catalogues that you realise. But because none of that matters, it all fits on the same gun. Yeah. So everything that we've got on our very, very late gun that would have served in the 60s fits on that 1914 gun as well. Okay. So you don't need to order a different gun.
A rule of thumb there then is it's the infantry gun.
Good rule of thumb.
That stays as a Mark I. Yeah. And then we've got our other guns, aircraft and armoured vehicles and so on. Right, okay. It's interesting.
But why everybody else doesn't follow that simple, because the Enfield revolvers don't, the rifles don't really. But I think it's principally because everything will fit on it.
Yeah.
Okay, and that wraps up episode 2, the 1920s. Wow. I hope you've enjoyed it. Again, if there's anything we've not covered or there's something you want to know more about, get in touch through Patreon and ask away. We don't profess to know everything. We do have a huge archive here, so that we have the ability to look things up. Not everything, because not everything survives, unfortunately. But yeah, do like and subscribe, and we'll see you back here for episode 3.